Hello everyone. It is Jackie with Pocket of Preschool, and today I'm coming to you live to tell you all about, can you see it? The color and color mixing unit that is now available in the Little Learner Science unit or Science Curriculum Bundle Extravaganza. So actually I'm super excited about this one, guys. I think it might be my favorite unit to date. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna show you what's included in the color and color mixing science unit. And then at the end, we'll do a quick Q&A, and then that's it. So I will say that there isn't really a science standard on a lot of the national science curriculum or the national science standards. There's not really a color mixing standard, but there are standards on how things change and cause and effect, and the physical properties of things. So that's kind of, if you are looking at what objectives this unit would meet, look at under your how things change and how humans can make things change. It's all about change, and then basically the scientific kind of process, predicting, experimenting, going, asking questions, drawing conclusions, all of that. So there isn't really a quote standard for color mixing, but it is a great unit to talk about how things change. So I'm gonna flip it around and we'll get started. So here's the science table, and this is the science table that you can set up in your classroom when you're doing the color mixing study. Now, when you would start the color mixing study, this chart would be empty. So there would be nothing on here, or maybe you would just have the colors. So you would just have the green, the orange, and the purple, and you would not have the colors used, and so it would be blank from like here down, and then this would be blank, because you would want them to be experimenting how they can make the colors change and make a new color, either green, orange, or purple, which those are secondary colors, as all of us know. So on the science table, you can pose a question, and these little cards are in like paint. They're kind of like a paint sample card. They're included. So if you are challenging, you have maybe just green up there or orange or purple, you can challenge your students, say, can you make, orange? And I like these color samples because there's a color variant, so it's not like always that pure orange. You can talk about how, there's light oranges and dark oranges and shades and tints, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. And then also at your science table, you're gonna wanna have 3 little cups of water set up. So I have red, yellow, and blue. And then I had 2 water droppers in here, but I don't know where the other one went. And then I have these are Petri dishes, and then these are just little containers I got at the dollar store. They actually came with lids. They're like in the craft section. So the reason why I use really tiny dishes and not those big test tubes is because if you're giving them a big giant thing to fill up, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna fill up that big giant thing. And eventually what they're gonna do is they will make brown or black almost every time, and they're gonna waste the colors, and they really won't be investigating kind of like with a purpose. They'll just be mixing colors for the sole purpose of squirting the colors out and putting them in a different container. So they'll be more transferring the colors into a different one. So if you want your kiddos to actually focus on making new colors, I would highly suggest using these little itty bitty containers. And you're thinking, I'm sure, where are they gonna put these containers? So what I do is next to my science table, I have a bucket, and I have a little caddy. And in my caddy, I have extra blue, I have extra yellow, and extra red, and then I do have a little paper towel. So that way, after they make their color, like this one's kind of a reddish orange, so maybe they wanna try again. Maybe this time they want to put a lot of orange in. Maybe this time they want to just try a couple drops and then kind of stir it up. And so they can compare the difference. This one's kind of a dark orange and a light orange, and they can even pull the color card down and compare the colors that way. And so let's say they made the orange they wanted. They can then draw about it in their journal, or they can dump the color and do it again. So all they do is take it over here and they just dump it out. And you can see my kiddos have been doing it a little bit. There's not gonna be a lot of color in here, and if it spills on the floor, it's not a big deal. Goodness. Okay, so they just dump it out, and if the little drops of water bother them, that's what the little paper towels are for, or you can just keep kind of one up here. But that way they can just dump it out when they're done, and this way they don't have to walk across the room to the sink, because for my classroom, the sink is literally across the floor, and run into kids or another kid run into them, and then you have color all over the floor. So yeah. Oh, somebody suggested if you don't have little Petri dishes, you could always use yogurt containers. So yes, so if you want to use lids, you want to, for your dishes, you want to make sure they're either white or clear, because if it's a blue dish or a blue lid, let's say, they're not going to be able to see the colors mix. And that kind of brings me to my next thing. So on my table, I just have a white shower curtain, and it's great for two reasons. One, it helps the kiddos really see the colors as they mix them, because if this was on the wood table, you really wouldn't be able to see the colors mix very well. And I have learned this from experience. In my old classroom, in my full day classroom, we actually didn't cover the table one year, and the kiddos weren't really noticing the color change. Here, I'll kind of show you this up. My table's kind of light, so you can see it. But see how you can't see it as much, and it kind of changes the color a little bit. But when it's on white, you can really see that color. And so this is a cut-up shower curtain from the dollar store. It also makes your table waterproof. So if the color spill, it goes on the cloth and it doesn't stain your table. Because every once in a while, because to make your color watery, I use food coloring, or you can use liquid watercolor, whichever one you want, both work. And sometimes the food coloring will stain the table. Now it has to sit there for a while, but we all know how kids are. They'll spill something and they won't either notice it or they won't tell us, and they don't know it's gonna stain the table. So that way, just cover your table with a white shower curtain, and you won't have to worry about anything getting stained, and they'll be able to really see that color. So you have the colors. I'm gonna sit down really quick. And then I have these sensory bags. And before we've used these for writing, but these color changing bags. So I squirted yellow over here and blue over here, and then when the kiddos mix the paint together, they can see how it's green. And then this one it was yellow and red, and it's making orange. And this one was red and blue, and it's making purple in the middle. So you can have color mixing bags over here, and then you can also have sensory bottles. And how I make my sensory bottles is I do 1 part glue, 2 parts hot water. And then I just put glitter in, and this is that fine glitter. And red, I did use liquid watercolor to color these, and then I just covered the top with some duct tape. So you can see that one's all shaken up. And then this one, the rest of them are kind of settled, so. And after your color mixing study, you can always keep these out in the science center. You can put them by the light table, you can put them in your calm down corner, so you'll get used to out of the sensory jars other times out of the year. So after your kiddos have, let's say like you have like 10 kiddos, they're like, oh my gosh, I know how to make green. What you would want to do is take the color mixing chart, which remember at the beginning, this part will be blank. You would take this off and you would go sit in a circle, and you would talk about, well, we have red and blue and yellow, how you have red, blue, and yellow, and take your color mixing jars with you as you do your science talk, and have them test out how to make green and how to make orange, and then have them put their color formulas on the chart. That way it's their ideas going into the anchor chart. Because if you just tell them that, oh, blue and yellow make green, you're just telling them the answer. They're not having to figure it out. They're not having to test, predict, draw conclusions. experiment with the amounts of water, if it's a little bit or a lot of certain colors. You're just telling them the answer. So the whole point of this color mixing study is for them to figure it out. And if it takes them a while, it takes them a while. If they figure out a color really quick, that's awesome. Have a science talk and do that. Yes, so somebody's asking about my sensory bottles. So these are the Voss water bottles, and I actually get them through Amazon. And they're the plastic ones. So yeah, I just like them. I also use Gatorade bottles for my sensory jars because it's a thicker plastic. I think a regular water bottle, it kind of crunches a lot because they're not as thick anymore, and they tend to leak, I think, a little bit more. So yeah, so then you can put it up. And then, so while they're exploring how to make green, orange, and purple, you can also do activities like make a color wheel. So just put out some, color the wheel, and then put out some collage materials, and they can sort the items by color, and then you have a color wheel for your center, and then later you can put this in the art center if you want. Laura says the book Mouse Paint would go with this perfect, and that is actually one of my book recommendations. The other one is this Colors book, which is available in Scholastic right now. And this unit also comes with a read aloud, so it's colors change, and how to talk about there's colors everywhere, and what makes, you know, how artists use colors and primary colors, and you use dark black to make tints and shades and things like that. So there is a read aloud about colors, because I really couldn't find a nonfiction book about why colors change, so I included one for you guys. And then if you want your kiddos to make their own color wheels, you can do that. So just have them color the color wheel, and then either put out some foam shapes or some tissue or whatever supplies you have in art, like maybe yarn, and they can make their own color wheel. And then if you want, like maybe after you read Mouse Paint, or after they have discovered how to make, or they think they know how to make purple, green, and orange, they can do this color investigation page. My kiddos finger painted this. You can also use watercolor for this activity. And there is a blank one too. So that way, if you maybe you want them to make, let's say, pink, and maybe you want them to try and investigate how to make teal, or a different color that maybe they're interested in, there is a blank page, so the color words are not on it. So that way they can pick the colors they want to try to investigate. And then we also have some more fun color activities. So this one is, these are when you do, just drop the colored water onto paper towels. And I'll tell you the difference here. So this one I used liquid watercolor, and this one I used food coloring. So you can tell the liquid watercolor is a bit more vibrant, but if you only have food coloring, like I know they have it at the dollar store, it totally works too. And these little, if you introduce your color study using the paper towel color mixing activity, it's a great way to teach kiddos how to use droppers, and talk about how sometimes you only want to add one drop at a time. So it's a great way or activity, or you can even put it in the art center to introduce how to use droppers and introduce the study. And then we also have these tissue collages. So believe it or not, this is wax paper. This one I don't have all the way back. So this is wax paper, and then it's tissue paper, but instead of using glue, the kiddos painted on with liquid starch. So it kind of, you can see this one's dry, it's kind of like hard and like kind of like a stained glass window, but the colors kind of mixed together to make new ones. Like you can see, maybe you can't see it on the phone very well, but it made green right there where the colors mixed. So it's a really fun way to explore color mixing, just in a different way rather than using the water droppers. And you can just use like yellow, blue, and red tissue paper if you wanted, but you don't have to. And I'm gonna walk right over here and show you one thing really quick. So this is the activity. And again, when you guys do these activities, the color mixing activities, whether you do like the paper towel one, which I have set up over there, because I was, in case anybody wanted to see it, use a white mat. And I know you're like, I don't have a white mat. Like these are just white pieces of cardstock that I laminated. And that way when the colors are mixing, they can actually see the colors, and it's not like on a red tray and then the yellow doesn't even look yellow. So yeah, so let me show you kind of what I'm talking about. So yeah, I just happen to have a baby wipe over here. So I'll kind of show you on baby wipe. But if you had, think about it, if you had like a red tray under here and you guys mix, or your kiddos were mixing the colors, they wouldn't really be able to see the colors really mixing, and you can see really well since it's on this white mat. And then I usually just have them take this whole thing and put it on the drying rack. And if you use cardstock, it usually folds up really well. And then you can either keep it in the art center or just change it and keep it in your color mixing box, kind of up to you, whatever you want to do. So yeah, so that's kind of the water dropper activity. I'm gonna keep going over here. You can also do smash painting. So you just take a piece of folded paper and then they squirt the colors on it and then they smash it together and they really have them really work those colors in. And you can see it makes orange, or like this one he made green, and they're just, again, another fun way to experiment how to make colors. And if your kiddos figured out how to make like the secondary colors like green, orange, and purple, have them experiment with shades. So mix red and white, or maybe you can mix black and blue and things like that. It doesn't, you can also experiment with shades and tints with the smash painting. And then, because some of our kiddos, and I will say, your kiddos do not have to know the names of the colors to experiment with this. This was a great science unit to help them learn the names of the colors. So this is a color sorting chart, and you can do this a bunch of ways. So it comes with these little boards. So you can just make them into little mats, and I just have Velcro dots on the back. And these are all real photographs. The little squirters from the Smash Art painting, those are from Discount School Supply. I actually just grabbed them this year, and I love them for keeping paint and art for the kiddos. Elizabeth said you can also do marble art. That would be another fun way to have them mix colors. And then, so you can make little charts with them with the Velcro, so they can sort the pictures by color, or you can get a basket of real objects, and you can tell these are like things I just have in my classroom. So I have crayons, then I have the picture cards, empty marker tops, and then they can just sort the items by color that way. Or you can make it an anchor chart, and they can cut out magazine pictures as well. So another great way to sort and classify by color, because scientists do lots of sorting and lots of classification. So that's just another fun color activity. And then once your kiddos do the secondary colors, have them, and they'll probably, most of the time my kiddos have been like, oh, I know how to make black, but they've never made black on purpose. So next you would put down black and brown and not have these on here. So these would be empty, kind of like the pink one doesn't have anything. Those would be empty. And then they have to make black and brown. And what's funny is, if you've ever made black and brown you have to kind of have equal parts. And black, you need a lot of blue with the other two to make it. So it's just a fun way to explore making black and brown on purpose, rather than just saying, oh, look, I made black and brown, and not really paying attention how I got to that color. And then you can also experiment with shades and tints. So maybe you want to challenge them to make pink. So put out just a plain glass of water, and that's super easy. And they can make tints. So they could squirt in some red, and then you could talk about how if you're using paint, would just kind of be like white. And they could just explore that way. And you can see I didn't really make pink, so they could just try again. Maybe they only need like one dot. And see how it kind of makes that light red. Well, I've also had my colors sitting out for like 3 days. I haven't poured them back in the jar. So I think some of the colors kind of evaporated into the water. But yeah. But yeah, you can see it's a little pinky. Maybe if I add another dot. Now it's a little bit orange. And they can just talk about that too. And then, so once they do that, you can also put out color mixing bags that explore tints, sorry. So put white in a color and they can explore how it makes the color lighter. And then once they do that, you can explore shades. So just put out a black water. And how I usually get my black water, I usually take my dump bucket and I just usually have to add blue food coloring to it, and then I get a really good black. So there is the black, and they can explore how to make it lighter and darker, or how to maybe make a dark red or a light red, things like that. And then you can also, there are vocabulary cards for tint and shade, so maybe if you put out the white water, your color challenge would just be to make a tint, which is a lighter shade, or maybe it would be to make a color shade, a shade of a color. So yeah, and it does get messy. They will spill it on the floor. It's no big deal. Once they learn how they can spill it and they can clean it up, it's not a big deal. And I also have these color mixing investigation pages. So you can, again, use watercolor, or we did finger painting, and we did green in the middle, and then I squirted the color on with those little bottles, and they mixed the paint, and we made different shades and tints of green. And you can do it with any color. So like here we made blue, and then they did purple, and they can maybe pick their color. And then this is a tint color sensory bag. So they just did the blue, and I put black, and you can see it's kind of like navy up here in the corner. So yeah, and then as always, there are color journals. So this is one little guy, he said that yellow and red make orange, and he just wrote yellow, red, orange. And then I have a first grader, he said how to make purple, mix black, and mix blue and red. So that's how he wrote his discovery down. And there's journal covers, so if you want to staple them together, you can do that. You can also, there's also a parent note you can send home. And as always, there are lots and lots of teacher directions, so that way you can set it up in your classroom. And it even talks about all my little tricks. And yeah, so all the goodness is in here included for you guys. So yeah, that's the color mixing unit, which is really students are exploring colors and how they can make things change. So yeah, so I'm very excited about this unit. This is actually really fun. When I taught full day and we were 5 days a week, we would actually do a color mixing study sometimes for 2 months. 2 months. Kiddos love, love, love mixing colors. And I think when you add the challenges and you make it more focused, you can really extend their thinking, extend their problem solving skills, and those scientific inquiry skills. And I'm telling you guys, some of my kiddos came 5 days a week, and for almost 2 months, if I let them, and I'm not saying I let them pick science every day, they would want to go to science and mix colors for the new challenge. And you can also too, like if your kiddos get really, really into this, just keep it going. Like you don't have to switch your science to match your theme. If your kiddos are really into a science study, and I have a feeling a lot of them will be with this study, like this will probably last at least a month in my classroom, even though I only have it planned for 2 weeks. If my kiddos are into it, I will keep rolling with it. Let them pick a color challenge. So maybe they figured out how to make orange and green and purple. Maybe they want to figure out how to make teal. My kiddos, when I taught full day, they love to figure out how to make teal. Well, that was our color challenge. How do you make teal? Well, it's like you know, a lot of blue and a little bit of green. But it's a really tricky color to make. So that was a color challenge they did. So if they're really into it, totally put it on them and let them be in charge of those color challenges. Alrighty, you guys have a great night, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.